Hello and welcome everyone to my micro summit, free micro summit, Healing the Wounds and Creating Miracles. And today my guest is Maria Kletke, who is a mother, grandmother, healer, entrepreneur, and has been called the oil wizard because she works with essential oils and does a lot of research. And welcome, Maria.
Thank you very much for welcoming me and inviting me to this micro summit. Such a privilege. Thank you.
You are welcome. Our topic today is from the eyes of the child within. And I really love this topic because years ago, I had an experience learning who my own inner child is and healing my own wounds. And some people do not understand this. They don't know there's an inner child. They don't believe it unless they've experienced it. So the first thing I would like to ask you, Maria, is what is the inner child? Does it really exist, and why should I care?
Good question, and it's a very valid question. We have to remember that throughout history, there have been references to their child. There are even verses in the Bible that talk about the inner child, but they never called it the inner child. They just called it a child. It was defined by Freud when he started describing one of his descriptions of what people are, and that was with the Peter Pan syndrome, and he talked about the divine child. Since then, it was the term inner child actually came from Dr. Carl Jung, and it's one of the archetypes he defined also. And then it was addressed in writings, recent writings, and some even John Bradshaw uses it in his, workshops. So it is real. It's a real thing. It's not physical. It's not literal. It's metaphorical in nature. So we have certain adult behaviors. So where we act like a child, we're impetuous or impulsive, petulant, like you're throwing a tantrum. And these are childlike characteristics, child that, is not happy. What about neediness, dependency, dread of abandonment? There's many of us that experience that as adults, but we don't realize that's part of our inner child. So to realize our full potential, we can't reach that full potential unless we make peace with the inner child within us, unless we meet their needs. So that inner child within us still has needs. And how we handle our challenges as adults, this is definitely a reflection of our inner child. So if you have any doubts about your inner child, just pay attention to how you're reacting. And we'll talk more about that as we go along.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So am I an adult or a grown-up to my inner child?
That's a really good question also, because this explains our relationship to our inner child. So within us, we have the adult us, and we have the child us, right? Mm-hmm. And it's important to recognize that we have a personal, intimate relationship with that child in us. It's very, very important to recognize that relationship. So we always talk about ourselves as adults. We go through all these seminars where we talk about, what's I like, what am I like it's a different person. We never discuss the inner child. It's kind of touched upon, but it's never really gone into. So most adults are usually not aware, or they don't want to deal with the inner child because it's difficult to them to deal with children. I don't know, maybe. But this lack of consciousness is precisely where many behavioral, emotional, and relationship issues stem from. And in other words, our blocks, including our money blocks, which we're discussing this whole week, is very much related to our relationship with our inner child. So grown-ups are convinced they've successfully outgrown, uh, discarded, or left this childhood. You know how they say, I've left my childhood behind?
Yes.
So childhood carries a lot of emotional baggage with it, you know. But a grown-up, they'll deny their childhood. I know a few that don't want to talk about their childhood. They've completely erased it from their memory. They neglect it. They make fun of it, ridicule it, abandon it, reject it. They just
Yeah.
reject their childhood. And then they do that. They also reject, abandon, ridicule, neglect, or deny their inner child. But what
Mhm.
about the characteristics of innocence and awe, wonder, joy, sensitivity, and playfulness, which are the positive attributes of a child? We are taught by society to stifle that. You can't go around we call it pretending. We can't go around pretending you're innocent or in awe. That's not an adult behavior. So we encourage the denial of the inner child. To have an adult relationship with our inner child, on the other hand, that means we have acknowledged, accepted, and taken responsibility for loving and parenting our own inner child. And so parenting means an ongoing process, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Well, what does my inner child see and how does that affect me today?
That's very important. And we're going to dwell on this question just a little bit. I don't know how much time we have, but this is the gist of what we were really talking about. So again, as a child, we have both negative and positive experiences. However, our brain is wired to protect us,
Mhm.
and it responds stronger to negative experiences. That's just the way our brain is. We can't really change that. So it takes a lot of effort to bring in the positivity, right?
Mhm.
Now, according to my therapist, and this was very revealing for me, a young child's mind is very impressionable. And because of the way our brain is wired, the negative things, experiences are more strongly remembered. They're impressed. And what happens is it can be a very minor thing. And I'll give you an example in a minute. But we will be literally stuck at that age when that impression happened, when it comes to that particular issue or some issue related to that. So I promised an example. I will use my own example, which is my mother and her sister. So my mother and her sister, they're very, very close.
Mhm.
And they like the same things, right?
Mhm.
But when they have a disagreement about any subject, it's volatile. It reaches a crescendo when they start shouting and screaming at each other. And the things that they say when I listen to them, my cousins and I listen to them because they don't care who's around them. Uh, it's illogical. It sounds like children fighting, right?
Mhm.
And to a point that at one time there was a disagreement on something that they could have come to terms with easily as adults. But because of this sibling rivalry, they didn't speak to each other for 3 years. In fact, the only time they spoke was just before my mother died. And it wasn't
Wow.
even a loving conversation. It was a matter of fact conversation because that was the only way that they could converse
Mhm.
because everything was still raw. And in a fit of anger, my mother asked, she's trying to be the good one. She's so emotional. Uh, she's on the accepting end of my aunt's anger. My aunt is beyond anger. She's just exploding. And she says, "What is the problem?" My mother said. "Why are you so angry at me?" And my aunt said, "It's because when you were 3, you took my doll and you pulled all its hair out and you gouged its eyes and you pulled the head out and you hid it somewhere. And I was stuck with this doll, the only doll I had. She said, I can never forgive you for that. And my aunt was about 5 or 6. Can you imagine an 87-year-old woman saying that? And
Wow.
that is the effect of our point of view as an inner child. So that the inner child sees things from their childlike eyes. And here are some examples of some trauma. I mean, that it needs to be addressed, right? From their childhood eyes. And it could be fear, it could be panic, it could be hurt, was the result, right? But these are the things that a lot of people say affects them. One is being hit by parents or grandparents, having a parent that was emotionally unavailable, being punished in any form, even if it was sitting in the corner, it had such an effect on them. Of course, molestation, that's serious. Divorce, our parents getting divorced. My husband has issues with this. And for a lot of people, they say it's nothing. Oh, it was my parents' issue. But when they're in the fit where they're triggered, it shows up, right? An inappropriate burden, such as taking care of an alcoholic parent. So if you're 3 or 4 years old and you have an alcoholic parent that's passed out, all of a sudden you become an adult. And we kind of say, hey, that's really nice. But we don't understand that that child is scarred for life because she sees it in her 3 or 4-year-old eyes. What about abandonment? I experienced that as a 6-year-old where somebody who was supposed to pick me up forgot to pick me up, and I didn't get picked up till 8 o'clock at night from school. Now that's abandonment.
Wow.
Or going through hunger, or not being fed, or not being in a safe place. Being neglected emotionally, where you had something emotional that needed someone. You just needed someone to hold you and tell you it was okay, and there was nobody there. And many people experience this, being deliberately called names and being insulted, or you're being ridiculed, your personality or some physical trait, you're being ridiculed. And, unfortunately, a lot of children can be very cruel, right? And it's just them making fun. But for you as a child going through that, it's major. In the case of my aunt, destroying her personal stuff, because children at her age, 5 or 4, it's my stuff, and protect my things. And then here comes this person who takes your things and destroys it. So for her, it was very, very major. Humiliation, sometimes even accidents, death in the family. These are things that are very, very traumatic. Now the child within, it wants to be healed, and so it will always come out. It will not be denied. Let me repeat that. The child within us will not be denied. And how does it call for help? With behavioral issues. We have behavioral issues that come from the child within. So when do they show up? They show up at the height of our emotional trigger. So you get triggered, you react, and it just multiplies and multiplies. It reaches a crescendo. It's really bad if you triggered the right thing. It can be really major. And that's when it shows up. You'll say something that's so connected to your inner child that it'll just, you might even be surprised you said it. You didn't even remember it, because many times children, if it's so traumatic, they won't remember it. They won't remember that they had an accident, or, we do that a lot. We just say, I can't remember my childhood, but you know what? It's imprinted in our brain. And if you really went deep, you will find it. It's there. Now, that gives you an idea of what you have to work with as an inner child. And I would advise people or encourage people, as I went through that list, to play the video again and make a list. because sometimes there's more than one issue that shows up, and we have to keep dealing with them over and over again until we deal with as much of it as we can, and then we're all adult in all our issues, right? But
Yes.
just remember that the trauma can be provoked by anyone. It can be your grandparents, your parents, your brother, your sister, extended family members, family friends, childhood friends, anyone. Even a book or a movie, you know, there are certain children who were born around the time of The Exorcist, and parents were showing that movie because it kind of is very subliminal, so it doesn't seem like that. But there are some children that are very much affected by that when they saw it at the age of 4 or 5, when there's not when there's a lack of understanding. So that's one reason why I tell parents, be very careful what you expose your children to. We think that it's nothing, that we can explain it, that they can understand it. That's not the point. The point is, how do they see it? How do they, what's their interpretation of what they see? Like a solar eclipse, the moon turns red. And for us, oh, look at that, the moon turned red. And for them, it's like, oh my God, the moon is all bloody. Mm-hmm. And you can't change that because that's the way they saw it. And so we have to be very, very conscious that children are very, very impressionable.
Yes. Wow. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's really, really heavy.
Yes. So, can I change my inner child's perception, and how?
Okay. So, usually children are stubborn. Mm-hmm. When I have a lot of stubborn grandchildren, so they're the lesson for me. When they say no, it's very difficult to change their mind, especially if they're already stubborn to begin with. And most of us are very intelligent. This is the age where there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of, when we were children, I know, because I'm 60 now, I was a stubborn child. My point of view is my point of view. So we can't change that, unfortunately. We can heal it. How do we heal the inner child? It's because it just continues to reveal itself. And like karma says, we're fated to repeat the cycle until we consciously break it. We can't break an inner child, right? We can't change the past. We can resolve it by listening and addressing the child's need. Let me repeat that. We resolve it by listening and addressing the child's need, just like any other child. What is it they really needed at that time? This is their perception. Did they just need someone to hold their hand at that time? And that would have resolved the issue. It's very simple because children are very simple, right? Mm-hmm. But here are some ways that you can be more, you can help your inner child. One is to be aware. Be conscious of your inner child whenever it shows up. And just listen to what you're saying. That's how it shows up. How you respond, how you're reacting, what emotional response you're getting, and when do you get triggered. The second one is to communicate. And if you can't communicate to it, listen. Just listen to what your feelings are saying. Because many times we shut the feeling down because we don't want to feel it, because it hurts. And try to listen to it from a third person point of view, like you're on the outside looking in, and ask yourself some questions about this feeling, like, where is it coming from? Where is it? Is it coming from within me or outside of me? What am I reacting to? You got to discover why you're feeling or reacting that way. And then the last one is to accept and take responsibility with love. Accept that you have an inner child. Accept that this is a part of you. Take responsibility for it. Be the parent, right? There are also some other ways that you can work with your inner child relationship. aside from speaking to your inner child. Take the album out and look at yourself as a child. What were you like? We are usually out of touch with who we were as a child, and seeing our pictures as children makes us understand better what we were like when we were children. Were you a spoiled brat? I mean, you'll see it in the photos. Were you untidy, like that Charlie Brown character that was always dirty and sucking her thumb? Or, look at your photos as a child. Do an inner journey. One of the things that you can communicate to your child is the whole Ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
Ho'oponopono, meaning I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. And you just say that over and over again to your inner child. That's kind of healing as well. There's meditation, and there's also therapy. I mean, if it's really major, I would suggest therapy.
Yes.
Meditation will work to a point, but if it's really a major issue, like sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that is one of the most difficult things to get over, do seek therapy.
Yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I know from experience too that when you're learning it and understand and accept your inner child, if you ask yourself a question that you cannot answer, your inner child can answer for you.
Absolutely.
And just be aware and that you're still safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because we want to feel safe. That's one thing about the brain. I may not have mentioned that. Our brain is only concerned about our safety. So it will delete or hide memories. It will rearrange it. So for instance, as a child, you don't want the brain, you touch the heat, right? It's hot, okay? And the brain automatically says, okay, anything hot is not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody puts your hand on the fire, and the brain goes, this is not good. This is not good. And automatically it creates some kind of an impression so that you feel safe, even if your hand was burnt. And that impression lasts a lifetime. And the other thing is that
Wow.
when it comes to that particular situation, you're stuck at that age. So let's say you experience fire again as an adult, you will react like you reacted when you were that age, instead of logically what you would do as an adult. And it's very, very difficult. So you will have maybe that fear, an unbelievable, indescribable fear that even if you see a match, maybe you'd run from it as an adult. And then you just go, I hate fire, I hate heat. And you don't understand why. So it can
Yes.
manifest that way. But
Wow.
the brain really is an amazing thing, but it's also an impressionable child.
Yes. And I like how you mentioned that it's our brain will protect us. So we don't want to get down on ourselves or get mad because there's something we may have forgotten that's
Right.
coming back up. It's only surfacing to be healed. And your inner child is telling us it's time, because he or she knows now we can handle it and we can heal from this and move forward.
Absolutely. Whenever you deal with blocks and you're working to go over the hump and get over the fear, right? It comes out because the brain says, okay, here's the block. And many times, because we're still operating on that fear, we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
That's why we're talking.
Right, exactly. And you mentioned before, like if it's very serious, we can seek a therapist, yourself, for example. And there's also things that we could do for ourselves, whether it's the affirmations that you mentioned, meditation, prayer, even reading, picking
Absolutely.
up a good inspiring book, listening to inspiring music, going for a
Absolutely.
walk, going for a
Absolutely.
swim. So
Absolutely.
those are all very important. Yeah,
All
we
right.
can ask our inner child, what do you want to do today?
Yes,
Maybe he or
absolutely.
she wants to go play ball, go to a movie,
We got
visit
to
a
go
friend.
back, right?
Yeah,
We got to
yeah,
go back to our inner child.
yeah, and that's okay and that's safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So can you tell us what are wounds, scars, and stars, and how does this affect my flow?
Okay, good. And we're talking about money flow, but it's basically any flow. So nowadays, people talk about their wounds,
Mhm.
and I'm very concerned about that because uh, you know, as children, I think I mentioned this before. I was going to use the soldier analogy, but I think the child analogy is better. So when you get a
Okay.
boo-boo and you're a young child, and mom puts that band-aid in, it's actually a trophy for a child. And the child goes around to everyone, adult and children alike, and goes, I got a boo-boo. And they peel off the bandage and they say, you want to see my wound?
Mhm.
And then the other child goes, well, that's nothing. You should see mine. It's bigger. And so we go around like that, treating our childhood hurts like wounds. And it's a denial. We don't want to deal with it. We just want to show it off, right? And a wound is an open sore. We're really triggered by it when it shows up. And we react quickly to it, 0 to 10 in a matter of seconds. We're sensitive to
Mhm.
that particular issue. And when that issue shows up in any form, we either become emotional, so we start crying and all of that, or we explode, like in the case of my aunt, or sometimes you just shut down. Just don't say anything, walk the other way, or your brain shuts down. You go, I don't even remember what that was all about. Complete shutdown. And those are indications that it's very much fresh. It hasn't even turned into a scar.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. The scars are wounds that sort of heal.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of these going on right now where they've gone through some kind of therapy, group therapy, uh, some other mediation like hypnosis. But the challenge is it was never addressed. If it's not addressed, it's still a scar, right? And
Oh,
again,
okay.
a child, after the band-aid is gone, they have a scar. And they
Mhm.
still go around like, look at my scar. And so we have a lot of people doing that, going, well, look at my scar. I was, and we talk, well, I was raped as a child, or I had this child molestation. We never got over it. We can't talk about it in a neutral state where we still
Right.
get emotional. And
Mhm.
this blocks our flow, majorly blocks our flow because now it's in a different level. In the other level, as a wound, we react to it emotionally, so it just shows up. But a scar is hidden. You may want to be
Wow.
successful, or you may want your money. You can't understand why you're doing all the laws of attraction, but the money doesn't show up. The opportunity doesn't show up. Maybe because somewhere in your childhood, there was a block that was created with regard to success, with regard to self-love, with regard to deserving money,
Mhm.
deserving success. And because it's a scar, it's subtle. We don't know. It's only triggered when it talks about money, let's say, or
Mhm.
I'll give, the word give. Let me give you something for your troubles. Like uh, sometimes you do some
Mhm.
free work for someone and they want to give you something, a gift, and you go, no, no, I don't deserve a gift. You just said it. You just said it. Whenever you say I don't deserve anything, that's a scar, and we should be very conscious of that. Where is that coming from?
Wow.
Um, yeah, we don't even notice those things because it's so subtle,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So wounds and scars, not only do they affect our behavior, they also affect our belief system. what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others, what we believe about society. They affect how much and how we love ourselves or accept ourselves and other aspects of our lives. They affect major behavior like drug issues. A lot of people that have issues with drugs do not love themselves. They cannot accept that they deserve certain things. And it comes from their childhood
Right.
and they just can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the negative and positive events of our childhood, and we have both, we should be able to look at it in a neutral way, where we can laugh about the good things and the bad things that we did. We can laugh about both of them. Those are stars. They are stars because they become learning experiences. They are experiences that we can draw strength from, courage from, good memories from, happiness from, joy from. The moment it becomes that, even if it's a bad experience, there's something good about it. The moment we can do that, then we have what we call a star. And the star part I invented because
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks
I
about
love
the
it.
stars. They only talk about the wounds and scars. But I go, what about the stars that are
Yeah.
around us, right? We should
Yes.
have as much stars as the heavens and as much
True.
wounds and scars as just a little bit of that we're
Yeah.
always working on and we're always overcoming. That's the way we should be. And then we're always happy if we have a lot of stars.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that analogy. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have some programs that you help other people in healing their wounds. What programs do you offer to help us understand our inner child issues?
Okay, so let me just uh, state that I'm not a therapist.
Excuse me.
And a lot of what I do is based on the experiences I've had and I just attend a lot of stuff, and I'm actually getting certified to do some therapy work. But in the meantime, I'm putting together a meditation workshop for 6 days in July. And we're going to
Beautiful.
talk in that workshop. You're going to meet your inner child. We're going to do a male-female relationship. So one day it's male, one day it's female. We're going to resolve all of this. It's just 6. My list stopped. I had a list of 6 things. Where did it go? Oh, hold on.
Sure. We can all take a little break and drink some water.
Oh, this is very important. That's why I'm sorry.
Oh, wonderful.
We're
Okay.
going to discuss fear. We're going to talk about fear because that's the number one thing that comes out with childhood issues. A lot of the trauma and stuff that a child sees creates fear. That's the first place they go to.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at money blocks, success blocks, and look at trauma only to discover trauma, because we need to discover if there's any trauma in our childhood experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is, then I do recommend, if it's so strong that you can't overcome it, I do recommend you see an actual therapist that deals with that kind of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting. They're therapists that specialize in trauma.
Yes.
And that's where you go. Because I don't specialize in trauma. So I also am planning in August an inner child path. This is a shamanic path. It's going to be in Sedona.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Beautiful.
limited to 8 to 10 people. And we've had wonderful success with that because Sedona is just that kind of place that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with 2 paths. It's a meditation series. You really do a lot of reflecting here and a lot of stuff comes out. It's just the way nature works.
Wow.
And we have a female path and a male path to deal with male figures in your childhood and female figures in your childhood. But
Wow.
because I'm so excited about the people that are tuning into this into this seminar or summit, I am offering a 15-minute reading just to look at the nature of your inner child relationship. I will draw 3 cards.
Mhm.
The first one is about the nature of your relationship. The second one is what's the issue? And the third one is what can you do to resolve it in a way? These are animal oracle cards, so
Mhm.
it's really fun to begin with. But the 15-minute reading will only focus on one card, which is just the nature of the relationship. If you want to go 30 minutes, normally I charge a lot more, but I will only charge $35 for full 30 minutes. So that's very, very economical and inexpensive, but it's
Yes.
entirely up to you.
Mhm.
15 minutes is sufficient just to understand what your inner child is like. And it's a
Mhm.
general reading. It's not, we're not going to go into the issues for the inner child. It's just, what is this child like? What is it? What is your nature of your relationship with your child, which you probably already know. And it's just going to be a lot of verification.
Mhm. Wow, beautiful. That sounds wonderful. I like that.
Wonderful.
And the
And
title of your free gift is called The Me Within, correct?
correct. The me within, which is actually part of what we're talking about right now. The point of
Yeah.
view of the child is the me within.
Yeah.
If we really, really want to discover the
Mhm.
me within, it's very, for many people, this is a taboo subject. This is a subject they're not comfortable with. And I have to warn you, it is not a comfortable subject for anyone, for you or for me, when we were going through it, and I'm still going through it, because to come face to face with yourself, to really see the person in the mirror and meet that
Mhm.
person is scary. It's scary. It's like, okay, do I have to get to know you again? I think I
Yes.
know me, and then you realize you don't entirely know you, and that's when it becomes challenging. But I
Yeah.
urge you, do the 15-minute reading just for the fun of it. And if you decide I'm going to stay in the dark, that's your decision. There's no right or wrong.
Mhm.
It's your decision ultimately,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Right. Yeah. Thank you. You've
Do you have
had
any questions that I can answer? I think we still have a little bit of time, right? Or
just a
are we
couple
right on
minutes.
time? A couple of minutes.
Yeah. Oh, well, I want to remind everyone that for your free gift to opt in, all they have to do is click the link below your video, and it will take you directly to the site. And then just below your information in your bio, there's a link they can click on for your website and your Facebook group.
Right.
So I
And if
encourage
you want
everybody.
to, yeah, if you want to connect to me about the workshop in July, just hit the
Mhm.
calendar and indicate there that you want to go into the workshop. Or you can also email me at healingoils that rock. Healing oils, THAT, rock at gmail.com. And I will send you some information.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Maria. I've enjoyed visiting with you today and covering this topic. You
Oh,
had
thank you
some
very much.
beautiful advice, and this has been perfect for the
It's,
summit. And I've
I'm excited.
experienced your work, and it is just fabulous. I love it too. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. And have a great day.
thank you. You too, and everybody else, and we will visit again soon.
Okay.
Bye
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 for
for now.
now. That was cool.
Yes.